Okay, so are you ready to dive in? Because today we're tackling ancient Mesopotamia and the rise of the Sumerian civilization. We got some interesting stuff lined up for you, starting with some excerpts about researcher named Shari Plaza, who focuses on kemetic culture. We'll also be checking out this Oxford University online course called The First Civilization. Mesopotamia. Talk about blast from the past, right? But okay, let's kick things off with Shari Plaza. She's got this interesting take on exploring Kemetic culture, saying it's more than just like, digging up old artifacts. It's about connecting with what she calls ancestral knowledge and going on this like shared journey of discovery. And speaking of journeys, how about we travel back in time, like 5,000 years? That's where this Oxford course takes us, thus, straight to sort of civilization, with the rise of Sumer. Now, I know what you might be thinking, Sumerians weren't those the guys with the big beards on those statues? Well, yeah, but they were way more than that. I mean, this course calls them the first civilization for a reason. And it's not like they were just chilling in caves or something. We're talking about the development of cities, writing, huge monumental architecture, even empires and like massive warfare. It's really incredible when you think about all they achieved. I mean, their impact on history is undeniable. It's not just ancient history we're talking about here. This is the foundation of so much of our modern world. Yeah, exactly. They had extensive trade routes, like spanning continents. Forget about Amazon Prime. These guys are the original global network. Yeah. And get this, the Sumerians, they invented writing. Yeah, so next time you're struggling with a text message, just be thankful you're not chiseling cuneiform into a clay tablet. Talk about writer's crap, right? It's funny, we kind of just take these achievements for granted, like writing, for instance. For them, it wasn't just about record keeping, though. It totally revolutionized how people communicated. Suddenly, you could share knowledge and ideas across both time and distance. It's mind blowing when you really think about it. They really did write the first draft of civilization. And we're all just adding our own footnotes now. And this Oxford course, it's like structured as a deep dive too. They break the whole thing down into these like these manageable chunks. I mean, yeah, with these intriguing titles. Like there's one called Uruk, the world's first city. Can you imagine like being a part of that? Building something totally from scratch, creating like the whole idea of city life. It's wild to think about that change in like the human experience, And this horse points out that Uruk wasn't just like some random houses thrown together. It was this bustling city with different jobs and complex social structures and even like early forms of urban planning. It really makes you realize how advanced these cities were. It's like stepping into a whole different world. And speaking of different worlds, the course also looks at Sumerian religion. And it's not just about like gods and goddesses. It's about understanding how those beliefs, like how they influenced every single part of their lives. Yeah. From their political systems to how they farmed. It's super interesting how the course explores this idea of a Sumerian revival. A Sumerian revival. Sounds like those ancient gods are planning a comeback tour. Well, not exactly, but it definitely caught my attention. What kind of evidence is there for a resurgence of interest in Sumerian religion and culture in modern times? It feels like a really fascinating area to explore. You're right. And it actually reminds me of Shari Plaza's work in a way. Both sources, even though they're different, kind of invite us on this journey of discovery. Exactly. They both touch on this idea of an ancestral journey. Okay, now you've got me intrigued. What do you mean by that? Well, think about it. With the Oxford course, it's a literal journey back in time. We're mentally transporting ourselves to ancient Sumer, walking the streets of Uruk, maybe even like trying to decode cuneiform. Right. It's like we're digital archaeologists or something. Yes, exactly. And with Shari Plaza's research on Kemetic culture, it's about connecting with that ancestral knowledge, understanding how the beliefs and practices of the past still have meaning today. It's about acknowledging the things that connect us through time and across different cultures. So it's not just about the past. It's about how the past shapes us today and in the future. Precisely. And that's where these two seemingly different things, the research on Kemetic culture and the Oxford course on Sumer, they start to come together. They both offer a way to engage with the past, to learn from it, and maybe even find some guidance and inspiration for the present. It's like we're all part of this huge interconnected story, each generation adding its own chapter. Yes. And when we study those earlier chapters, we get a better understanding of how rich and complex the story really is. We start to see these repeating themes, and the important events and the questions that have shaped humanity. It really makes you think. Even though they lived thousands of years ago, yeah, the Sumerians faced similar challenges and celebrated similar triumphs that we still relate to today. Absolutely. The course even talks about how the Sumerians dealt with things like urbanization, social hierarchy, even environmental issues. Those topics are still so relevant today, maybe even more so now. It's like they're dealing with the early versions of our modern problems. Exactly. And that's what makes studying history so engaging and meaningful, right? It's not about memorizing names and dates. It's about understanding how humans behave, things that have shaped our world, and those big questions that we're still trying to answer. I've got to give credit to this Oxford course. Yeah. They've made learning about ancient Sumer really accessible. It's all online. You can learn at your own pace. That flexibility is so important these days, especially for those of us who are busy but still want to learn. It's about breaking down barriers and making these ancient worlds come alive for anyone who's interested. That's what it's all about, right? Taking these topics that might seem distant or irrelevant and making them relevant and interesting for a modern audience. It strikes me that both these sources, they really encourage you to actively engage with the past. Like, it's not just about, passively listening. It's about like really asking those questions and making connections, and just seeing the world from a fresh perspective. Absolutely. It's about tapping into that curiosity and being open to being surprised by what you find. What about you? What surprised you the most about that whole Sumerian revival idea? I think what really got me was just realizing how much we can still learn from the Sumerians, even after all this time. Like they dealt with urbanization, social hierarchy, even things like environmental sustainability. And these are all things that are so relevant today. Right. It really makes you question that whole idea that history is irrelevant or outdated or something when you think about it. By looking at how the Sumerians tackled those challenges, we might actually find some new ways to approach those same issues today. Yeah, it's like we're holding up a mirror to our own society, seeing how far we've come, but also maybe where we still have room to grow. Exactly. That's the power of historical perspective, right? It lets us step outside of our own little bubble and get a much broader, more complete understanding of what it means to be human. It's kind of like when you're researching your family history and you stumble upon some connection to a historical event or a long lost relative or something. It suddenly makes the past feel so much more real, Yeah, absolutely. And just like genealogy can uncover these amazing connections to our own personal histories, exploring ancient civilizations can reveal these unexpected parallels and links that really enrich our understanding of the human story as a whole. It makes you wonder, right? Like, if the Sumerians could see us now with our smartphones and skyscrapers, what would they think? Would they be impressed? That's a great question. And it really gets to the heart of why history matters. It's not just about memorizing facts. It's about grappling with these enduring questions that have fascinated humans for centuries. Who are we? Where did we come from? And where are we going? It's amazing to think those questions are just as relevant today as they were back then. Just like the legacy of the Sumerians and the impact of their innovations that we still see in the world all around us. So we hope this deep dive into Sumer has inspired you to learn a little more, Maybe check out that Oxford course or Sharri Plaza's work on kemetic culture, or just do some exploring of your own. Until next time, keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and keep digging deeper into the stories that have shaped our world.